Good morning, brothers and sisters. Shout out to each and every one. Shout out to all the people out there who doing what they got to do. Shout out to all the gardeners. Shout out to all the people out there who doing something positive. Man, you know how it is, man. Blessings to all the mama and dad. Shout out to all the single parents. Shout out to all the entrepreneurs. Shout out to everyone out there who doing something. Blessing to each and every one of you. Blessing on this beautiful day. All right, so to the topic is growing food that can feed you and your family and not just to look pretty in a flower spot or in your garden. Growing the food that can feed you and your family and not just food to make to just to look pretty. It gotta make sense. It gotta adds up. To me, it gotta make sense. It's gotta adds up. I really believe if a person is actually trying to grow some food, I really believe you should really do your research, especially times like these. You do your research on plants that grows well in your zone. I really think that's important. Do your research on plants that grows well in your zone. This is really important because at the end of the day, you try to grow food. You only have a certain growing season, a certain amount of months to grow your food. So I think doing your research on what type of plants grows well in your zone, I think that is very, very important, guys. Very important. The truth is, we love a lot of food, we love a lot of different plants, but the truth is, some of these plants, man, could be very challenging at times. Like, for instance, there are certain plants, especially, especially if you have small space, guys. If you have small space, you got to think about what you're planting and what you're growing. Because I might love spinach. You know why I don't grow spinach? I love spinach. Spinach is a plant I love. But why I don't grow spinach is because you got to put in all this care. I love it or not? I love it. You got to push in all this care. And then because I plant my spinach in the spring, before you really get a serious harvest is already bold, especially when the sun start coming out. When the sun start coming out, they start bolting. They're not trying to push out more leaf. They start bolting. Something that I replace that with, spinach. They all have mostly the same benefit. What I've replaced spinach with, sweet potato vines. I replaced spinach with sweet potato vines. Why I did this? I did this because I can eat the vines. I can cook the vines. If people salted the vines and the vines growing lovely, and you could also always harvest the leaf, then you also, hey Buck, what's up? How you doing? Then you also can able to get a harvest from the potato itself. So for the people who have small space, if you have small space, I'm not talking about if you have big space. If you have big space, you could grow whatever you like. But when you have small space, you it's best to sit down and think about what you want to plant and what makes sense. And what makes sense. Thank you all for coming through. Don't forget to hit that like button. Appreciate it. Yeah, you got to plant what makes sense. What can feed your family? What can feed you? Does it make sense for me to grow this plant? I love how it look. It looking beautiful. But would it take up too much space? Would it take up space and limit my growing? So now, when I do the research on spinach and potato leaf, I've realized they both have benefit. I love spinach, don't get me wrong. I love spinach. But, like I mentioned earlier, they start bolting. Hey, Anthony Clapper, how you doing? They start bolting pretty fast. Now, if you're growing sweet potato in that same area, you're able to harvest the vines. Do your research on the vines, guys. I'm not telling you to just go out there and start eating potato vines. Do your research on these things before you start eating them. But the difference is the potato will not bolt, the potato will grow, and it will continue put out vines. And then at the end of the season, you're still able to harvest sweet potato. You see what I'm saying? Now, in that case, with the spinach, what it does, it produces, but from the time the sun start penetrating it, it's ready to bolt. So these are things I look into. I grow food that makes sense to me. And it's wise that everybody do the same. Grow food that makes sense to you. Grow food that can really provide, not just to look good, not just to make your garden look pretty, but able to provide for you and your family. Broccoli, I love broccoli. I love cauliflower. But these type of plants, from the time the sun start hitting them, especially the broccoli, the cauliflower give you one crop. It produce and that's it. What I love about that is you could remove that plant and replant something else after it produce. The broccoli, most of the times, sometimes you get a big head of broccoli, but after that, when the sun start coming out, you start to see this the slow down growth, and then the bold they start to push flowers. So to me, these crop, if you could plant them all in the year, some people plant them in the fall as well. But if you planting them in the all, plant them early, so they have time to grow and replant. So like for instance, my broccoli them is producing. So what I'm doing is after I harvest the first crop, I take them out and replant something else. But if you have small space, guys, think about what you're growing. Think about what grows well in your zone. Think about food that you're growing that can give you a continuous harvest during the season. Think about that, because to me, I'm gardening for me to eat and my family, not for my garden to look nice and beautiful, but I can't harvest anything. Whatever zone you in, you got to think about what grows well in your zone within that growing season, especially for the people who in this zone that don't do too much and the zone that the growing season is so short. You're very limited, so you want to make sure that you think about the plants that can do well in your zone. I love cabbage. I love cabbage. But these type of leafy greens can be very challenging as well. These leafy greens, they attract a lot of worms, they attract a lot of bugs. So if you know you're not going to be on top of your game dealing with these leafy greens, it's best you think about it before you even try to grow them. Something, depending on the zone, depending on your space you have, think about it before you plant them. Think about them before you plant them. Do your research, see how long they take, see how they produce. I prefer growing food that can feed me during the year, and at the end of the crop, I still can get a harvest. Sweet potato, that's one of them. Edos, that's one of them. Tanya, that's one of them. Dashing, that's one of them. These plants, you can feed off their leaf. And at the end of the crop, you can harvest their root. These are things, to me, certain things ain't worthwhile. Not to say I don't love them, not to say I don't like them, but it don't worthwhile me growing them. Because to me is, some of them, they might take up too much space, and some of them, they're not producing enough. Like for instance, I love beans. I love me some beans. Whether it's black eye beans, these type of beans. I love me these type of beans. But I don't really grow them. The reason why I don't grow them like that is because you have to plant so much to be able to get a nice decent harvest. You see what I'm coming from? So if you have small space, you have to think about things to grow, things that can produce enough for you, things that make sense. You can't just be growing things and you barely could get a harvest. From the time the sun come out, it start bolting. If that's the case, then you got to be prepared and ready to replant something in that space that can give you a harvest before your frost. So you really have to sit down and think about what you growing, what you planting within your garden season. This is just my opinion. And I'm sharing this message. Maybe it might do well for someone. Think, do your research, find out which plant does well in your zone, learn about how the growing, learn about which climate they prefer. Do they prefer cooler climate than the heat? Because number one, you don't want to plant broccoli in the summer. You don't want to plant broccoli in the summer. That type of heat, broccoli not going to do well. Even cabbage. These type of plants, you don't want to plant them in the summer. Leafy greens, they prefer colder weather, which is the broccoli, the cauliflower, the spinach. All these plants prefer the colder weather. So you don't want to go and plant these plants in the summer because you're not going to get much from them. You see where I'm coming from? So it's important to have a successful garden. It's important to think about what you're growing, study them, get some insight about them, see what type of weather they prefer, see which plant prefer the colder weather, see which plant need the more heat. Like pepper. Pepper prefer the heat. So you have to plant pepper in a heated area. When I say heated area, where the sun shine. So it's a lot of plants out there you can grow with benefits. But if you're trying to feed yourself and your family, you have to sit down and you have a small space. If you have a big space, it's different. But if you have a small space, think about what you're growing and grow a garden that makes sense to you and your family. Not a garden just to look pretty and no harvest. Think about how long. If you're going to set those plants, some plant in July, make sure that it have enough time for them to produce before the frost, or it's not going to make any sense. So these things you really need to educate yourself about plants and what type of plants you're growing and how late can you plant a plant in your zone. Because if you're growing pepper, you really don't want to go out there now planting pepper in July. Because you're not going to get no harvest because the frost going to come upon you before harvest time. If you're doing it in a container, then you might stand a chance of taking it indoors. But I think it's really wise to study any plants you're gonna grow. Make sure you know how long how long they take before they produce. Make sure you know is these plants prefer to plant in the winter or the spring or they need real heat. Think about it. And when you understand these things, then you will be able to have a successful garden, whether it's a small space or a big space. Know the plants, know what they love, and if you're able to give that to them, you could have a really successful garden. All right? Thank you guys for coming through, man. Thank you guys for hitting the like button. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, hey Sissy Junior, what's up, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, yes. Yeah, man. So how your garden going, man? How your garden going? Blessings, blessings on your side. How your garden going? Yes, guys. So, man, this is garden season, man. And like I said, man, pay attention to your plants. Figure out what they love and what they don't love. I personally, I don't know for you, but I personally prefer. All right, that's wonderful. The garden going good, you can't complain. That's good news right there. That's good news right there. And it's a blessing as well. Yes. Yeah, man. So, yes, guys, I just want to say, man, thank you all so much for coming out. Appreciate you all. You know, I always go live so you can join me. You know, I have tons of videos. You can always check out my videos, them. But right now, I'm getting ready to go in the garden and plant some tomato. I think it's late, but I have a lot of tomato seed just grow up. So I'm just gonna plant them out and see what I can get out of them. But I just wanna say thank you all again. Appreciate you all. Happy gardening to each and every one of you. Blessings. Peace.